Hello, everybody. I'm Judith, and I've got with me today Trent McLaren, and I'm going to leave Trent to introduce himself, but the catchy title of today's session is Slack Accountants, and since I do have to put my hand up and say, yes, I am a chartered accountant, how slack have I been today? Trent, would you like to introduce yourself?
Definitely. So again, my name's Trent McLaren. I am the head of accounting and strategic partnerships at Practice Ignition, which is a tool built for the accounting industry globally around your client onboarding. So thinking proposals, the way you get paid, the way you engage new clients, your contracts and things like that. And I head up that globally, as I said, in a strategic partnerships and head of accounting division. So my role kind of sees me working and partnering with firms all over the world, trying to understand how they work, how can we help them work better, and just try to help build that thought leadership piece in terms of where we want to educate the industry and where we want to help them move as an industry in the next couple of years, or as we keep evolving as a platform as well. Luckily enough, I won the Thought Leader of the Year in the accounting industry in 2017, and that was based on the works and the things I was doing at my time at Intuit QuickBooks Online, which was the Australian-based version of the product, Intuit obviously being a US parent company. And I've been walking around in this accounting space for nearly 7 years. Before my days at QuickBooks, I was at a company called eWay, which do all the online payment processing, and my role was a Xero ambassador. So all I did was work with Xero accountants, Xero bookkeepers, helping them get online to take online payments through their Xero invoices and things like that. So I've seen the industry from so many different variations, whether it's been from an add-on connected to Xero, the biggest competitor to Xero, arguably in the world, and then coming into Practice Ignition, where it's back on an add-on side of things again, but working heavily in that cloud accounting space. So, yeah, that's a bit about me.
Excellent. So I'm Judith, Judith Cambridge. I'm a co-founder of Accounting Pod, and have to confess to have been in the accounting industry for a couple of decades. The time moves very quickly, doesn't it? And I did start my own public practice firm 10 ago. And since then I've moved into education technology with the Accounting Pod platform, and we're very interested in this network of connections that Trent is talking about. But Trent, why Slack? Why accountant Slack? Can you answer the question?
Yeah, it's a funny question when you say, are you a Slack accountant? You're like, hold on, no, I'm a good accountant. I'm not Slack. What are you talking about? And obviously people that don't understand or get where I'm coming from, Slack obviously being the platform and the product for communication. So it's an internal chat forum, chat function that you can use in your workplace. And it works on like an instant messaging type of interaction. So you think about the way that you send SMS messages to each other, online messages through things like Facebook or whatever it may be. And Slack is just an internal company communications platform, so you can internal message each other, share files, documents, do video chats and calls, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But the biggest thing that I love about Slack and why it's important, I think, in the accounting industry, is that you can plug in so many different applications and notifications into Slack. So, when invoices go overdue for your own business, that could actually trigger a notification into Slack to say, hey, this has gone overdue. And the whole idea is that it's keeping your team alert and aware when things happen, allowing you to react faster and move quicker as a business, as opposed to working in the siloed desktop environment that most firms work in at the moment, by which it's all based around email communications and so forth. And that actually means that a lot of firms can't implement things like remote working policies and so forth because their communication internally is horrible. So it makes it really hard to do that. So I think the reason I love this idea of a Slack accountant, as in a firm that's embracing Slack as a platform, it's not just about using the platform, it's about allowing accountants to think outside the box and think outside of how else can we communicate more effectively as a team with our clients, What other notifications can we bring in to better react and work with those that are involved in the business? And that's the real core of the chunk of it is based around that.
Mm. You know, if I was a new graduate coming into a firm that's a Slack firm, you know, how am I going to, how am I going to onboard these things, and how am I going to approach that communication platform?
Totally.
I need to really understand.
Without trying to sound a little ageist, because I'm not, but I think new graduates coming into the industry will be able to pick up technologies like Slack really easily because they already use Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp. They're already familiar with instant messaging platforms, and they will embrace and love things like Slack because they know they were born with an iPhone in their hands. Do you know what I mean? Like they've had this technology at their fingertips for quite a long time. So I think that, and not even just Slack itself, but if they just embrace technology the same way they embrace technology in their own personal life, then they will see the benefits of that resulted in their own careers. And the only thing that kind of withhold them from being able to do that will be dependent on the firm that they're working in and whether that firm has embraced technology or not in the same capacity, and not just cloud accounting, but everything else that's connected to that as well. So just embrace it. If you're a new graduate or you're not, anyone else that's listening, you can only ever do that in this space because change is constant. Totally.
So I guess picking up on that theme, change is constant. What kind of stories can you share with us that you have actually firsthand observed in the public practice industry? Because I guess as in your role as a practice technician, that you are constantly talking and liaising with these things. So what kinds of gains and journeys have you seen?
Good question. I actually had an email from a colleague in the UK, and I met him about a year and a half ago. And when I first met him, he was telling me they're going through a big rebrand for the business, but the rebrand was about their marketing and how they were perceived by small business owners. But it was also about the way that they were doing their accounting fees, the way the technology they were using, and they had just picked up and started embracing cloud accounting full on with all their clients. And it was interesting because I only read this email this morning, but when I first met the firm, they were at £650,000 per year. Within 12 months, they'd increased that by around 20-30%. So it was £850,000. And within the next 12 months, they're expecting that to get up to around £1.25 million by April 2018. And this is only because they keep implementing technology. They are then bringing new clients into that fold, expanding around not just their compliance work, but also that relationship and helping clients build their businesses. And as a result, that's also helping them grow. So they've rebranded the website. They've readjusted who they are as a brand. They're now modern for their area. They've then been able to buy and acquire another firm as part of that. And they're just seeing tremendous growth as a result. So I think when I first met them, they were at £600,000. To think within 2 years, they're now double that, £1.3 million per year, all because they put a few plans and strategic developments in place. That's massive. Like that for me is just a great, simple example of just tweaking a few things to modernise their practice, to get all the right tools and technology in place for both their client and for their firm. And that has been a dramatic increase in both customer experience and company revenue.
Mm. And within those firms, though, in terms of adopting these kinds of new technologies, what challenges does a public practice firm or anything you've come across, what challenges do they face?
Honestly, the biggest challenge for a lot of firms embracing technology is actually the managing partners, the ones that don't want to change. Honestly, that's always the biggest challenge, because educating clients and shifting your clients is all around the way that you strategically plan that process. And as long as you've got a good process, a good plan, and you execute it effectively, that part's fine. But the thing that slows down change in firms is the leadership that determines when things will change. And sometimes you kind of need to either employ someone or a team to help do the change management and just sort of get out of the way. But the biggest thing that block change and innovation is always things like ego, pride, negativity, and just people that have been doing things for so long the way that they want to do it, and they don't see necessarily why they should change anything, whether it's their tech or just their processes in general. Even though you'll have a few good people or a few people that have got this dream to want to revolutionise the way they do things, but they get held back by, again, I'm going to come across like a real loser, I think, in this, but like that older generation of people that don't want to make the shift. So I think as that generational shift and change comes into this industry, we actually will see things move a lot quicker again, because some of those people are waiting for retirement. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's not going to impact me for the next 2 years. I'll retire and I'll move on, and that's kind of the way it is. So it's there's a lot of moving parts there, obviously, and time as time goes on, then everything else will move with it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting observation at that level. It seems like sometimes you'll see that leader of the firm just realise that, if they want to stay in touch with their own family, they have to adopt technology. And I've heard that story anecdotally many times. And that has often triggered the change in the adoption because there's just a huge realisation of a whole digital world out there that they're just no longer connected to. I recall that if we stop for a moment and put the hat on of the new graduate coming into this hugely interesting and changing digital world of business and accounting that we're in now. What do you think they should be paying attention to?
I think that they still need to have fundamental understanding of how everything in their accounting role will work. So, we all went to school at some point, and we all look back and go, there's a lot of things there I learned how to do something and never actually used it in practice. And I think the same thing will happen here. People will still learn how to do things that they'll never use. But it's important that they do that, because they need to have an understanding and empathy for how things are done and why they're done. It's important to understand that how those things are evolving. So whether it is the technology or if it's just the soft skills, because it's just being able to communicate effectively with clients and knowing what questions to ask to get better responses and results. And I think developing that empathy component or that empathy bone or muscle is really important, because when you're dealing with business owners, especially small business owners, they're very passionate, it's very personal for them. And the best thing you can do as an advisor is actually tap into that and be a support system for them, not just for their compliance needs, but for their business needs. And when they need someone to talk to about their business, that could be the practitioner, the grad, the firm, whatever it may be. That could be them if they've set themselves up to do that correctly. And I think by doing that, that actually just helps improve your value proposition as a firm, which then, again, as a result, helps lead to better revenue, more referrals, and all that kind of stuff. But they're kind of the key core things I think a lot of grads should keep their focus on.
Mm. And so I guess that follows on, we said, well, what would you pay attention? So if you were starting your accounting career now, and so let's kind of consider the student who's entering the tertiary or has maybe started tertiary uni or other training institution this 2018 year. What would be your advice around what they need to focus on as they kind of prepare themselves? Yeah,
so I think because when they come in, they're obviously going to have a lot of direction and guidance from their partners and team leaders and things like that. So I think it's important that they, where possible, they just go above and beyond and really try and deliver a great job in what they're being taught first and foremost. Because, and then second to that is obviously understand what is happening in the industry and what are some of the best firms and practitioners doing. And they're only going to do that by chatting to other people, reading about it online, and being involved and invested in it, following all the right companies, following all the right sort of thought leaders or influencers or whatever you want to call them. But those biggest components are still going to be, get your head around the best technology in the accounting industry, and then the best sort of business processes, models. People are talking about advisory. We're not necessarily being able to deliver it properly. And a lot of that comes from, again, not having the soft skills attached to that. I think as a new graduate coming in, just to keep it really simply, nail down the role, get used to working in public practice and find a good mentor in your firm. Second to that is try and work smarter, not harder. So understanding what the technology will do for you so that you're not having to manually code and input data and upload, export, etc. Will always be more beneficial. But it's really hard to do that if your firm is not set up for that type of environment, which is why I'm saying you've really got to lean into what is the environment, have an understanding of what actually exists and what best performing firms look like. So again, be hungry to know what that looks like. And then, if there's a chance to influence it in the business, then go for it.
And I guess for a new grad coming in, there's always a new piece of tech coming out. Every other day there's a new possibility that we could or use or trial for our firms. So that must mean, if you are new in the industry and you want to pick up on an area, very quickly you could become an expert in that area and really build your value to the firm.
Totally, yeah. Look, you're going to be, it's pretty hard to be a jack of all trades and things these days. You might go on to specialise in tax and tax planning, therefore you may not spend as much time in apps and ecosystem in technology. You might go and step on and be a technology specialist, therefore you know all the different apps and ecosystem and all those sorts of things. So I think normally these conversations go to get your head around technology, but I think importantly understand what it is you want to specialise in as a young grad coming into the world, or the accounting world.
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking, sometimes that isn't it? You start off thinking, yeah, I really love audit. I did audit at uni, and I got really great marks, and I think what I'd love to do. And a couple of years later, having slogged through 2 years of auditing, it's like, so why did I choose that?
You might love it. You love it until you actually start doing it properly, and you're like, yeah, no, this isn't for me. It's interesting. There's a lot of really cool things going on in audit. There's a product out of Toronto called MindBridge AI, and they are an AI platform built specifically for auditing, and they're doing some amazing things. So I could definitely recommend all the auditors check out mindbridge.ai, because that is a fantastic example of how tech is completely changing the way auditors do things, as opposed to just spot checking certain things, where the technology will check all of it and then present to you the suspected fraud in certain areas and all that sort of stuff. Very, very cool.
Yeah, no disrespect to the auditors in the room.
No.
I think particularly now with technology, and you've pointed out one of them, MindBridge AI, but that whole area of digital and how that will impact the auditing role is already seen. I understand from someone recently that one of the big universities in the UK has been told, look, don't send us any more graduates that don't understand data analytics and big data, and how they can be really helpful in that space. So maybe the business graduate needs skills that are happening over in the School of Science, right? Starting to see that kind of crossover trend.
So yeah, I think the data analytics piece is really key, because it's not about just getting the data into the system. It's being able to report on the data and then present that to the client, the business, whoever that is, and then giving them the options that you've perceived out of that. So this is your data. This is what I've observed in your data. This is the good thing or the bad thing about that. And here are the options that you've got to do that. And based on my expertise as a tax practitioner or whatever it may be, these are the pros and cons of each solution. And at that point, the business owner then needs to make a decision on what path to go down. But that is the total complete value of accounting practitioners in the future, is not doing the data, but everything else I just said after that, analysing, building the recommendations, explaining what the recommendations are for the client, and the client may go, okay, well then this is probably the best one for us then. What do you think? Letting the accountant talk through it, saying, well, look, yeah, that's good, but this or whatever, this is my recommendation because of why. And then it's just about following through with that, monitoring that with the client, and keep going with those kind of decisions. And that, I think, is where the data analytics piece is really important, because it's to pick out trends and things that can help a business make better decisions that can lead to better profit, better revenue, better tax planning, all of that sort of stuff. That's where that specific role, I think, is really important.
And Trent, you know, as we connect all these different things in our practices, you know, how does the what's it called, the skeptical accountant, I guess, the one that has to, you know, you double question something that you see the truth in front of you, I guess. You know, how do they deal with the impact on those kinds of more regulatory pieces of the practice, right? And the industry where, you know, some clients might say, I think we had this situation happen today, just a simple conversion of paper-based data, which doesn't happen very often in our world, but, you know, we had to convert. And one of the young guns decided that they would use a platform on the web to convert a bit of data, right? No one knew anything about this, the platform. Yeah, so it's just some of the kind of guiding and things that need to be in place within firms where you are trialling and bringing on board different bits of software.
Yeah, I mean, there's always policies and procedures for how new tech comes in, and it's not, you know, I think if you're the owner of the firm, it's probably not great to tell your whole team, hey, just go wild and trial lots of new things. It needs to be in a controlled environment. I think you need to have dedicated champions that can explore it in a controlled environment where you mitigate your risk of things going wrong. And it's not to say that platform you described there was anything wrong with it. It's just that no one knows anything about it. Therefore, it could be bad, but it could be good. And that's the thing. Like a lot of the skepticism always comes from I think a fear, and a little pessimism is attached to that. It's like, oh, but what if something breaks, right? And it's like, yeah, but what if it works really well? And it's like, oh yeah, but I'm too worried about the fear to be so, you know, and I can't believe that it would be good because I've never seen that before. Does that make sense? So it's like, well, I've never seen it with my own eyes. How could it be real? How could it be better than me doing it manually? Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, I don't know, you've got a screwdriver and a power drill, but this is the first time you've ever seen a power drill. It's like, nah, screwdriver, until you show me that power drill, won't break and explode in my hands. Why would I even think to use? Do you know what I mean? So it's, I'm sure we did the same thing when cars first came out. We're all on horses. Cars, they're like, nah, I'm not riding in that thing. That's ridiculous. One day we'll have driverless cars and everyone will be like, you know what? I'm not getting in that driverless car. 20 years time, you know, we'll be sitting there going, I'm not using that teleporter. I will not. I will use my driverless car, not my teleporter. Do you see what I mean? So it's an evolving door of just the way technology is. And we'll all adapt, and it'll start with a few brave folk, and then it'll filter down to the people that are steadily and slowly become more familiar with it.
Thanks, Trent. I'm just noticing if anyone has any questions, please just put them in the chat panel that you've got access to there. And we are recording this session, and we will be publishing it as a blog post, maybe in summary. Some of my chatting taken out, but you know, the guts of it will be there for people to absorb later. Yeah. So Trent, so you're with Practice Ignition, and of course that's a connector. Tell us a bit about that and how it connects, and how that product really changes the game for the firm.
Totally. So I think when I think about it now, we talk about cloud transformations as a business. You're an accountant. The picture, you're an accountant. You've had a great conversation with your client saying, hey, we're going to help you transform your business. We're going to get you onto the cloud. We're going to do all this sort of stuff. Before we can do that, please print, sign and scan my Word piece of paper, and then print, sign and scan and send it back to me. And this delays and just causes so much friction in that process. And it's completely the backwards opposite feeling that you want to instill with your clients or the new clients when you want to get them on board. The second part of that is you then let your clients dictate when they pay you. Here's my invoice, it's due on the 14th of the month, but there's nothing in place to stop me or stop you from not paying me on that day. If you want to pay me 7 days later, that's up to you because I have no control over that. So as firms, the debtors start to run wild because their cash flow is out of control, and all these problems start to occur where now we're calling clients saying, hey, why won't you pay me for the job that we agreed mutually by a signed physical contract? Why won't you pay me for that work? You were happy with it. I was happy with it. Why is this taking such a long time? Because we give our clients too much choice. So Practice Ignition is there to eliminate all of that friction. Here's the digital agreement. You sign it. You give me your billing information and I'll bill you automatically every month. You'll then get an invoice from me every single month automatically, and those invoices will automatically be raised, reconciled and matched in the accounting system, and the contract is digitally stored all at the same time, so that as soon as a client digitally signs, the work can begin. And every client gets an engagement letter or a contract, which doesn't happen all the time. Even though it's supposed to, clients walk out not getting the engagement, not getting the agreement, and then again, they determine when they're going to pay their bill or their fee. Good example, my accountant right now, I'm the worst offender. He's done my tax, he's waiting for me to sign something, and pay him some money. But again, I have to print it out before I can sign it. I'm like, sorry, but like I'm traveling, I'm not home, I don't have a printer, whatever it is. It's taken me 10 days longer than it should. Versus if that was a digital signature piece, this could have been done 10 days ago, right? And this is exactly where that process comes in. And again, as I said, this is what we do at Practice Ignition to help solve that. We then pull all the analytics out of that as well. So with all of the agreements that have been signed, I can start to tell you what your cash flow will look like for the next 12 months, what your business performing analytics are, so monthly recurring revenue, conversion rates, number of new clients coming in month on month, best performing services. We want to help firms have conversations about their business so they can make better decisions on where they go next. Exactly what I said before about advisors saying to their clients, hey, this is where the business is. This is what you could think about doing, and we're here to help you either way. Practice Ignition does the same thing. We're here to display, look, here's everything going on in your business. Here's a few areas you should be looking at to pull the levers on to then hopefully see that revenue move up and to the right. So yeah, that's client onboarding. If you think about that whole element of bringing a new client in, Practice Ignition solves that piece to then help you start your workflow into your practice management system, whatever that may be.
Yeah, and I suppose to the students that are sitting there and maybe not at this point or as they move into their first role, not maybe fully understanding how the firm works, right? It's good for them to understand that there are some great tools out there that are going to make that kind of in-firm compliance work just so streamlined that it means they can get on with their jobs as well, because the process does tend to hold everyone up.
Totally.
I'm sure you've seen that. Yeah.
Oh, completely. I mean, I've seen some firms where their new client onboarding process takes 7 or 8 people because the administration person does the engagement letters and then that goes to a senior accountant to finalise before it goes to the partner to then sign off on it. But then someone gets sick along the way, which holds the whole process up, and then the client holds the process up because they didn't send everything back. They only sent the engagement letter back, not the direct debit form or whatever it may be. And it's a nightmare. It's like, how are you expected to grow your business when you can't even nail the first part, which is getting them on board and taking care of the billing? That's the most crucial part. You don't exist as an accounting firm without bringing cash in the door. And right now, I'd say majority of accountants do a horrible job at doing that. They won't say they will, but it's because this is what they know. And they might say they've got debtors outstanding and some people just pay and that's fine. But there's still a very lack of control in those environments. And I think the more you control and the more you set up your firm for success or your clients up for success, the more likely that is to happen. And obviously, if you're measuring that as well, then obviously what gets measured, you'll see improvement in those results.
And I guess, for a student sitting here now, they may be not fully understanding why there has to be this piece of paper that gets signed, right, by both parties. So just for a moment, for those students in the room, every public practice firm would have a requirement to have something signed in writing with their client, both for their own professional body rules, for the taxing revenue rules. So in New Zealand that's IRD, and in Australia that's the ATO. It is required that you have authority to do something on behalf of the client, and you'll come across that many times in your career as as you have to get an authority for maybe getting information from a bank or from an insurance company, or so it goes on as you deal with the many different business aspects of your clients' affairs, I guess you could call it. So, Trent, you've won this award in 2017. Tell us then some of your thoughts about what the future of the accounting profession really does look like when we consider right now this growth in automation, because I guess Practice Ignition is an automation product and it will just get better. The likes of the accounting platforms like Xero and its connected products have hugely sped up a lot of the processing and compliance side. And our taxing revenues are all looking at building, wonderful features. So really, what are we all going to be doing, Trent?
Yeah, look, it's a good question. I think it depends. The country you're in will determine a lot of the time, how fast that will be. But if you give it a real macro lens, like if you look globally, how many small business owners are there in the world, or how many small businesses are there in the world? There's it's a couple of 100 million. It's a lot. It's a lot of small businesses globally. On cloud accounting, there's only 4 or 5 million businesses worldwide using a cloud accounting product, which means there's still less than 4% of the world runs on a cloud accounting solution piece of technology. So, which seems bizarre, because if you're in Australia, I think the number's closer to 40 or 50% of small businesses run on cloud accounting. I think New Zealand will probably be a similar number of sort of 30 to 50% as well. And in those countries, some people are like, you know what, I'm sick of talking about cloud accounting because I've been talking about it for 7 years. And then you go to somewhere like Europe. I've been to a Grant Thornton office in Europe, and they were 7 stories big, and 2 of those floors were dedicated just to manual processing of data, and it was the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life. And it was all desktop-based products and solutions. So there is such a long way to go for having the whole world connected online through accounting ledgers, that the future is just more of that, more improved. So whilst it's taken 7 years to get to this point and everyone just wishes that things would be better overnight, we get feature requests all the time. Xero would get them all the time. It's like, why can't you just do this? It's going to take time. It's going to, it could take 5 to 10 years, and it'll improve every year. But when you look back again in 10 years' time to where we are now, you're like, oh wow, that has, leaps and bounds gone above and beyond. So you're going to see a lot more of the AI stuff in the bots, the AI, the analytics. The blockchain component, I'd argue, is kind of already there for some accounting stuff, like that global audit log is already there, really. If you think about audit logs in products, they already exist. So it's like, how do they take the rest of that blockchain technology to keep it more secure, to prevent things like fraud and all that sort of stuff. So that's exciting, but I'm expecting to see that outside of accounting more so than in it per se, because it's already quite there in some ways. I don't think people realise that as that's so much really. But yeah, you think about, again, like I said, driverless cars before. I think eventually you'll look at systems being able to do things more repetitively, faster, quicker than you can, presenting you with the data. Therefore, you're just analysing data and then making decisions based on the data and the things that you found.
I think as a practitioner, So I'd have to say this 11 years on cloud. It would be true that I am over the term cloud, but what I am interested and passionate about is the thinking in, I think it was 1989, a Bill Gates book actually, Business at the Speed of Thought. And in my mind, business at the speed of thought is what I'm aiming for across the client base, and because that's a fascinating thing, because it is about achieving those connections. But one of the things I've seen, Trent, and I don't know what your experience is that we are rapidly globalizing because of those connections, and therefore our knowledge needs to be global. And it's almost like you just can't avoid it. For example, GDPR, that new regulation coming out of the UK and Europe across the protection of data and how we store it and stuff. And this is, this is important for a product like Slack as well, isn't it? There'll be a point at which we have to operate together as a global community and agree just for the security and privacy of our clients, of ourselves and our clients.
Totally.
I'm already seeing some of that impact hugely on our global connections,
Yeah.
And I'll come back to my story this morning about someone deciding to use a unknown platform to convert some data. What was really interesting is we're kind of sitting there thinking, well, actually, there is something else. There is maybe something that could really help us here. And we met this couple of guys at an international conference, and they were starting a company about 5 years ago. And what were their names? Oh, yeah, we'll look them up, and they're based in the UK, I think, but they're both Irish. And here's this company, let's touch base with them and see where they've got to, and maybe we'll have a solution. And that's exactly what happened. They have a solution, that can help. And I was thinking, gone are the days that once again, there's that Slack channel. In that Slack channel, right, in my experience, right, on my mobile, my Slack channel is actually, I think I've got 6 Slack groups, right across a few clients that are using Slack, across a couple of companies, and another Slack internal channel. And I'm literally at the point where I'm starting to wonder, well, where do I go from 6? Is there going to be 20? How do I manage, across scale? And so once again, someone's going to come out with a product, aren't they?
Well, it's interesting because I've got this now. You can actually integrate, you can invite other people into your Slack channel that aren't part of your company. So I've got some of our customers that they use Slack for their firm, but they have their own private channel in their Slack account that connects to me and PI. So whenever we need client feedback, we can actually just ping people inside the Practice Ignition Slack to a secure client-only Slack channel where they can't see all the other stuff, but they can have a direct connection to us as a company, to get to like our founders, our product teams and all that sort of stuff. And I've got similar with other app partners as well. So it means that I don't need to have a new Slack account just to have a private conversation with that person, that I can just have one Slack account that connects directly to external people.
Oh, yeah, no, that's a fantastic idea. My challenge is collaboration, range of businesses, collaboration across, with the team. So certainly these tools are fantastic. I think that they keep you alive. I would recommend maybe you want to remember to turn notifications off on your connected watch where you happen to be somewhere where you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I think the future of accounting personally in the business is exciting.
Totally.
It is changing rapidly, but I think it always has been changing, but maybe digital makes
always. Yeah, it's not a lot of people sort of forget that, I guess. They're like, oh my goodness, things are changing so quickly in the last 7 years. I'm like, well, let's be honest. Like, once upon a time it was Lotus Notes before anything, right? So like we've been through this evolution for a long time, not just cloud accounting. Like that was just the next wave of change. It's definitely, probably there's a lot of different challenges with cloud accounting as there was when, MyOb first brought out its desktop product, or QuickBooks first brought out its desktop products, there was a lot of learning curves to go through. Product companies weren't able to move that quickly back then. It was all based on CDs. So if you had a bug or an issue in your product, then you kind of had to suck it up for 6 to 12 months until the new CD came out, right? Because that's just the way it was. Whereas now that can get fixed in an hour, and you didn't even know it happened. Do you know what I mean? So everything's just moving faster. It's more accessible. And I just expect to see more and more of that.
Excellent. I think personally I like the fact that with that speed and with that change having adopted, what I now focus on is creating gaps for thinking, because it's vital that room is made to really consider the problems before us for business and for our clients' businesses, and that actually comes back to good old-fashioned thinking and applying that knowledge and experience that you've built up across those things. Look, Trent, it's been really good to have you here today, and I very much appreciate it, and thank you so much on behalf of Accounting Pod. We're very keen to understand the digital connections and the learning that's going to be required of students and graduates in particular as they move into the workforce, be it a job or be it as an entrepreneur in this space, in our profession, and the place that we work that has just so much opportunity available, and such varied and interesting careers such as yours, Trent, where basically you've become a thought leader in this area. And I think I just encourage any graduate that there is opportunity for you to do likewise. Right, so I haven't received any questions here, Trent, but we will be responding to any questions post this session, and as I say, we will be producing a blog, and we'll publish that off the back of this session. So thank you so much, Trent, and thank you to our attendees, and to those, I guess, who might join us when it's published later. Thank you, and we look forward to you further continuing your journey in this exciting digital space, and hopefully one day your business will be happening at the speed of thought as well every day. So yeah, wonderful to have you. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thanks for having me. It's been great to be on the session.
Yeah, excellent, and we'll catch you at Xerocon. I think we're going to catch up, so excellent.
You will. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
See ya.
Okay, bye.
Bye.